So, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Nicole, as usual, strategist here, helping you create and implement strategies that's going to help you to move closer to your goals. And of course, part of that includes, of course, working on your financial wellness. And and I say that because a lot of us are in different stages of our financial journey. And that's one of the reasons we have with us Edward Williams today. And of course, Edward is a financial advisor and registered representative who understands how intimidating investments and retirement planning pretty much can be. And that's coming from a background of course, with where your parents didn't talk much about finance. And he's going to go a lot into share his story with us for a bit, so I won't get too much into it. But he's here today to share how you can start building wealth regardless of your income level. So welcome, Edward. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you, Nicole. It's a pleasure to join your show.
Okay, so just to start, tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, and basically just share a bit of your journey.
Yeah, so I am a wealth strategist. A little bit about me. I mean, born in Baltimore, Maryland. Went to undergraduate Howard University in finance, then Business School University of Maryland in finance, and got my first job working on Wall Street and in New York. That's why we were talking about the
Yeah, New York.
718
Yep.
number. Still got the
Yep.
same number. And yeah, just been doing that my entire life, managing finances. Before it started with managing finances of the investment bank and bulge bracket firms, now I'm
Uh-huh.
helping individuals
The
out.
regular people like me, get it all together.
Now, Nicole, you are not regular, all right? You are not you are extraordinary.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so I know you weren't always great with finances. So I want you to go backwards before you became this Wall Street guy or whatever. Just go back a little bit and, share the pitfalls of the things that got you to paying closer attention or being more mindful of financial planning.
Yeah, well, even working on Wall Street, I was a mess.
Okay.
I I was a kid coming out of college, making good money. I mean, I think it was like over $100,000 a year, and this
Oh,
was
that's
in
good money for a
'98.
kid coming out of college.
Yeah, it was great money, and but it's not about what you make; it's all about what you save. Because I found that my pay kept increasing, but my spending also
Right.
increased as well. And there was an incident where my dad developed diabetes. And I was living overseas at the time because Merrill Lynch, the firm in which I was working for, transferred me to London, England. And I was over there working in a group called the Mergers and Acquisitions Group. And
Right.
my dad had called me because he had gotten diabetes and he had to be hospitalized for a period of time and needed my help with finances, needed me to help
Right.
mom out. And he'd often bragged about my accomplishments
Right.
and that. But I looked in, when my dad called me, I looked in my pocket and it was a time that I remember exactly where I had nothing. I had nothing, Nicole. Everything that I was making, I was
Right.
spending.
You were
And
spending, it was
so
coming through one door and going out the other.
more was going out than what was coming in.
Man,
And
you blew
it was just,
$100,000 in income a year at
well, at
coming out
that,
of, but I can understand that. A lot of money you start spending, and I'm sure a lot of us do that.
yeah. At that time, it was a little bit more, but the moral of the story is, yeah, again, it's not what you make, it's what you save. And so I came back here to the States and tried to help mom and dad out. And I had to build wealth on my own, starting from the ground zero.
Right.
And I was able to be successful. I documented every journey, and I put it in my book, my new book, Wealth Building for Beginners.
Beginners. Yeah.
Yeah, I put that in there, and I just took it one step at a time, one
Uh-huh.
step at a time.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, regardless of, little by little, you'll get to where it is. Which brings me to the point where the thing about it is, well, let's just get, because I got into the book.
Okay.
And before I
Did you
got
like
deep
it?
into it, so far so good. I'm
Okay.
almost finished. Not complete finished, but enough for me to be able to speak with you. And I'm definitely going to finish it and probably do a review in addition to that. And of course, I will be dropping the link for anyone who is interested in reading the book so that you can go ahead and support and purchase so that you can get started on your own financial journey. But before we go get a little deeper, explain for those people who are not quite clear on what a registered representative means.
So that's, I mean, that's just a, yeah, that's just a title. That means that you can work with securities. You can
Right,
work with stocks and
right.
bonds and real estate investment trust and these things. I am an investment advisor,
Hmm.
which means that we're just the guys who have to take loads of tests and go through
Right.
a lot of scrutiny to prove ourselves that we are capable
Hmm.
of getting paid for investment advice.
Right. Investment advice.
That's all it is. Yeah.
And the reason I asked that, as mentioned before we started, my ex-husband, he was a registered representative. And I think, you have agents, of course, because we're talking about wealth. So which means we're going to cover insurance, investment, retirement planning, which most people don't take into consideration when they're thinking about their financial wellness. So, I just wanted people to understand what that title means if they're looking into doing certain things. What's the difference between just having an agent and having someone who has the title of registered representative? So now that we got that out of the way, okay. So one thing that I see, and even for working with women in general, women have a tendency of not liking to talk too much about money. Society, somehow we have this thing, we're afraid to talk about money. When we start businesses, we're afraid to ask for what we want. When we are applying to jobs, we're afraid to negotiate our worth. And even to the point where, the church folks like to say money is the root of all evil. However, though money isn't everything, I do believe it gives us option. Speak to that based on your stories, your woes, the thing, your because I read up a little bit about you, the things that you got to, you know the rental home, the going to Italy, the living the life on the surface, but underneath you didn't really, optional decisions you wanted to make.
Yeah. So I don't believe that money is the root of all evil. I don't, that's just like saying that people who are rich are the devil. Well, I don't think the people who are rich are the devil just as much
Right.
as I don't think the people who are poor are the holiest.
Right,
And
because
so
everybody wants to be rich, regardless whether they admit it or not.
it's a little bit of both and everyone. So I don't like just lumping those stereotypes there. So you wanted to hear, you said about my
Right.
story.
Yeah. So, I mean, from the things that you've gone through, what are your perspective on, the whole idea that, people don't like to talk about money. It's not a comfortable topic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then of course you also have, us, of course, as African Americans, sometimes we grow up in certain culture where, they'll say money is the root of all evil, especially when it comes to church,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, of course, yes, it's not everything, but it gives you option. And being able to have option means you need to have money.
So in my book, Wealth Building for Beginners, I talked about it. It's the poisonous peas, and you
Hmm.
always want to avoid the poisonous peas. The first P is perception. And this is something that I struggle with. We always like to show others that we're doing well. Sometimes
Right.
better than what we really are, because we care. It matters what other people think about us. Well,
Thanks. Right.
once you become comfortable in your skin, then perception has less relevance. But you
Right.
really gotta control that mindset. All right. So the first is perception. The
Hmm.
next is procrastination. You know how many
Right.
people I meet that's always kicking the can down the road, and hey, I'm gonna get started building my wealth
When
when I
this is right.
when I get this, yeah, when I get this great job,
Right.
or when I have a little bit more money,
Right.
or when I move, I'm gonna buy this house first, and then I'm gonna get procrastination. It can
Right.
easily take your dreams away. And the last is just having a lot of pride.
Right.
We mentioned I work with a lot of the faith-based organizations
Right.
and churches, and a lot of us have just such tremendous pride where we don't want to show anyone our weaknesses and our
Right.
cracks in the armor, because it's considered frowned upon.
Right.
But you've got to get over that. Don't have so much pride where it's crippling you. And so I talk a lot in the book about managing those three P's. And then once you can manage those three P's, then you're already one step ahead than further than where you were before.
Right, definitely. And I know I've been through those three P's
Uh-oh.
myself. I
Uh-oh.
mean, I'm not perfect. I mean, I think at some point everybody has hit those three P's, perception about worrying about what others have to say. Okay, if I do this, they're gonna, what they're gonna think, or building your life about waiting for the validation of other people for you to do certain things, when sometimes that what they're doing ain't even coming close to what you're capable of. And so
Indeed.
we stay there waiting for validation and waiting for people to approve the things that we want to do. And of course, you talk about the procrastination, when that happened, when this happened, been through that. And of course, the pride, you don't want to open up. And I have the saying that says, or one of my favorite quotes that says, closed mouth don't get fed. So if you don't ask the questions and you're not willing to be vulnerable, because building wealth is going to entail vulnerability, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got to be vulnerable.
Right. So which means getting into the nitty gritty of the things that you're doing, looking at your finances with from an honest perspective, whether
Well,
you like it
just
or
like,
not.
I mean, when you go into a doctor's office and you have,
Mhm.
say that you have an illness or something that you need help with, you go into the doctor's office and you got to be completely vulnerable. You got to
You got
tell
strip
doctor,
naked.
hey, yeah, yeah, doc, hey, I got, I might have some diarrhea, or doc, I'm throwing up, I'm vomiting, and you got to tell doctor everything
Right.
in order for him to give you the right prescription. And
And then he has
vulnerability.
to do a little bit of probing too,
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
order to be able to get to that point of stuff. And it's, I think, the same thing with finance. Until you can get vulnerable with that, it's going to be hard to also move forward, which where pride comes in.
you got to be vulnerable. You got to be vulnerable. Even in the example I just gave, I mean, when you go to the doctor's office, they give you those, or the hospital, they give you the hospital gowns, with your butt hanging out, and you're
Right.
completely
Right.
vulnerable. But
Exactly.
when you leave there, you're gonna be better. You're gonna be better.
Right. Definitely. So a little bit of vulnerability, so that you can be in a better place when you leave. Okay, so I want to dig a little deeper into your story, because the thing is, a lot of times people think that, hey, you got it good, you're in this place, you don't know what I'm going through. I've been there, you have gotten to a point where you had hit rock bottom,
Oh
in many
yeah,
ways,
yeah.
in more than one ways, multiple times. Share, I mean, part of that was, you talked about, leaving to go to Italy, and then subletting, and ended up, one of your very best friend ended up having 10 grand garnished because of your relationship with money, your bad relationship with money.
Yeah, yeah. So a little bit about that story. I've always been a hopeless romantic, and after my investment banking days, I was still a kid, had some good money, and decided to go to Italy to live just permanently. Just
Right.
got up and went. But I'd had a apartment in Washington D.C., beautiful in Georgetown, and my irresponsibility led me to leave without taking care of my responsibilities. And so I'd asked a friend, hey, can you sublet my apartment for me? And she said, sure. So she you show someone the place and you handle all the paperwork. And she did that
Mhm.
for me. But there came a time when after the person moved in, they lived there for a while, then they moved out. And my reckless spending led me to spending their security deposit. I was over in Italy, just living the time of Raleigh and I, spending more than what I make.
Uh-huh.
And I spent the security deposit that they left. So, and it was a lawyer who was living in my place. And so he knew all the procedures of how to get
Right.
that money back. And he did that. He did just that. But he garnished my friend's salary, and she had to pay $10,000 out of her pocket, out of her hard-earned pocket. Now the rent wasn't that much, right? But
Right.
he managed to get a whole lot more, and I felt
Right.
horrible about it because I couldn't pay back my tenant security deposit, and I definitely couldn't pay back my friend who had money garnished out of her.
So the cost was that much greater
Oh my
than the
goodness.
initial.
Oh my goodness. Talk about someone feeling bad. I mean, I felt horrible. I felt very horrible.
Just to ask, how did that relationship end up?
Well, now we're great friends because I got myself together. I got myself
Okay.
together, and I learned how to manage finances, and I learned how to build myself back up. And of course, she was the
Right.
first person I paid instantly.
Paid
I
back.
gave her
Right.
that back, and she goes to a lot of my seminars. We have these seminars around the world where we help people build from scratch, and she
Right.
attends and shares this story, and we put out her story in the book. And so now we're great friends. She's actually getting a lot of notoriety right now because of that.
Because of that. Awesome. Awesome. So you said you do seminars around the world, so you don't have to be in the States for you to work with someone, right?
No, 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 no. I
Okay,
mean, we
definitely.
do, yeah, yeah. I do holistic planning,
Right.
and coaching.
All right. So there is this one thing you said in the book that I thought was so funny. If you have a landlord and you drive a Mercedes, you have a problem. And of course, I believe, I think when I think about that, the thing is a lot of times when it comes to making money decisions, and I think you touched on that too, we make money decision from an instant gratification perspective.
Indeed.
We don't think long term. So we'll buy the car, and especially if you like, for example, we understand living in New York City, you don't have nowhere to park. You're parking on the street, but you have these big, costly cars being parked on the sidewalk, and you're walking into a rental apartment.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so that for me was funny, but for the sake of listeners, expand on that a bit. The whole
So the
idea of being able to be disciplined about your money journey. It's not going to happen overnight, but step by step. Because for
yeah,
you, I know it took you a while. It took the work and the discipline, but look at you today.
yeah, yeah. And thank you for that. And people don't hate me because I know there's a lot of people that have, Lexuses and landlords and Mercedes and landlords and Range Rover and landlords. I think the concept behind that statement was I want people to start thinking in terms of gaining ownership.
Right.
We want to gain ownership so that we have more control.
Right.
If you're paying rent, that's an expense,
Uh-huh.
right? And sometimes rent could be great depending on your situation. But if you have an expense, you might not want to increase that expense with a luxury car. The
Right.
idea is to decrease your expenses, right? And increase your assets. A
Right.
luxury car is not really an asset unless it's assets are things that are bringing you, how what type of return are you going to get from that luxury car.
Right.
Now, I'm all for having glamorous things. I love
Right.
having glamorous things. I mean, I lived in Italy for 10 years, so I'm a big fan of all the
The
designers and
glam. Yeah.
the brands and the markers, but make sure that you're being responsible first. And then after you're being responsible, okay, maybe you want that luxury car after you have some sort of ownership. But don't
Right.
just continue to jack up your expenses because you want to look good.
Right. You want to please the Joneses.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
impress on the Joneses, and then of course you don't know. Okay, so that's good. One of the things that I see in financial planning, and of course wealth building, is that some communities have this negative connotation when it comes to insurance. And I mean, as a girl growing up, it's only as I got older and, of course, started thinking on my own, doing my own homework and everything, I understood the real value of life insurance, not just for when you're dead, but I understand the living benefits of products like life insurance. Can you touch a little bit on the importance of that in your financial planning?
Yeah, so I think that when you're building wealth, I mean, you want a combination of insurances and investments. That's a nice mix. Insurances typically have a dirty word because
Right,
it's a dirty word. Most people consider, a lot of people consider it because it does a lot of heavy lifting and you don't see immediate returns.
right.
You had mentioned life insurance. I'm a big fan of life insurance. I think that
Hmm.
I think everyone needs it, but
Right, regardless.
yeah, I mean, it's life insurance is something that's very valuable. And then when you start talking about the permanent insurance, I think that,
Right, the whole life.
yeah, I think that, depending on your situation, I mean, it's hard for me to say, but I can't really give
Right.
great advice on which is better, whether or not it's permanent
Yeah,
or
because
temporary.
it's based on where you are and what you're trying to do.
There's so many factors. There's so many factors that dictates what type of insurances you should purchase and gather for yourself. But I'm a big fan of both of them. I'm a
Right.
big fan of both
And
of them.
we're not, we're not say before you guys implement stuff, do be sure to check in with your financial advisor, whoever it is that you're working with. And of course, if you don't have anyone, of course, we got Edward at the end of the show. He'll give you all the information so that you can reach out to him. And then of course, I know you get into investment and retirement planning. But for those, of course, as your book says, wealth building for beginners, for someone who has not yet to do anything, who wants to say, okay, I want to start today. Can you give one practical thing that they can say, okay, let me move on this today to start moving closer towards, not that it's going to solve their problem, but
Yeah.
at least one action thing that they can actually do to say, you know what? All right, let me now start slowly moving towards the direction of getting my ish in order.
So I think that when you make that decision to start improving your wealth, the first thing that you need to do is have a plan. You've got
Right,
to you've got to you've got to set up a plan. That's number one. You've got to know exactly where you are, on paper. That is,
right,
what type of income you have coming in your household, what type of income you have going out your household. So you've got to know
right,
exactly where you are. And then you got to know where you want to be, whether or not your goals are retirement planning or, whether or not your goals are college planning, whatever it is, where you want to be at the end.
right,
And then you just put together that plan of how much you're going to need until you get to the end. That's the very first step, just setting up a financial plan. And,
right,
if you can't do it on your own, then yeah, go and seek out a professional who can just get a plan for you that you can follow. You got to have a roadmap because you
right.
can't travel to a destination and just not know how to
How
get
to
there.
get there. Yep, definitely. Yep. I am okay. So and of course decisions that we make are of course tied to habits. Can you speak to how important it is to visit your finances regularly, sit down and assess your finances regularly? Because a
Oh,
lot of times people are going through, for me, I consistently know, okay, what is my account? If I'm going to spend, I know what's supposed to be out, what's supposed to come in. I can take a look at my thing and determine, okay, something is not posted. Most people just spend. You talk about, I don't like to see that red. I don't like to pay bank fees. I mean, none of that stuff. I feel like I'm just giving away free money. And I'm at a point where, I'm beyond that point. I'm able to do stuff. I have my insurance. I pay that, by the way, I pay that annually because I want to make sure that I don't have to worry about it lapsing, because I find that the first thing that happens when we hit certain things, we're not canceling cable and stuff like that, but we cancel our insurance and we cancel the stuff that matters. I started my own little retirement outside of everything else. But how important is it to sit down and basically assess your finances, whether it be monthly or every quarter, something, just to make sure that you're in order and you're not trying to go beyond, sit down with a budget or wherever it is. If you're in a household with a 2 adult household, sit down and be able to talk about that. And then
Yeah.
there's another question after that one.
Well, that one is pretty simple. You just got to measure. You've got to, what you're talking about is measuring everything. And,
Hmm.
and because what doesn't get measured doesn't get counted. And you have
Hmm.
that goal in mind. And the only way you're going to hit that goal is if you measure along the
Hmm.
way. And so that's simple. Yeah, it's very important. You've got to look at it, even if it's hard to stomach. Looking
Right.
at your bank account can be hard to stomach at times, but you've got to know where you stand.
Okay. And relationships and money. Because of course, building
Relationships.
wealth, relationships and money. You got couples getting together, you get married, but you haven't had the money talk. You haven't sat down. And I know, of course, as a financial advisor who sits with, people on a regular working with their money, what do you see is like the biggest challenge when it comes to couples?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads. I think that the first that comes to mind is there's always one who's better at managing finances than the other.
Right.
And I guess that transparency of the one who is not great
Right.
in managing finances, they've just got to come to surface and expose themselves and let
Right.
whoever's better at handling the finances, let them handle it. It doesn't
Right.
have to be gender specific. It doesn't,
Right.
whoever is best at handling the finances, let them do it. I mean, I've seen people that come into some of our offices and couples, and I mean, they get into an argument right there, because
Right.
one is better than the other. So determine
Right.
who's the spender and who's the saver. If you both are on the same page, great. You're already ahead of the pack.
Right. And I guess that's where that the big P, I guess, real, brings this ugly head. The big pride, the third one, rears this ugly head.
Yeah.
When it comes to relationship. Okay.
And I talk
So,
about that. There's a passage where I talked about that in the book as well,
okay, I
about
did.
building for beginners.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I was on the money then. How does purpose? We're just winding down. How does purpose fits into the big picture of wealth building?
How does purpose?
Purpose. Mhm.
Okay, so purpose meaning why build? Why
Yeah.
build now?
So for me, I talk a lot about purpose because to do anything, you have to understand purpose and stuff, your whys, your purpose, your goal. And you talked about having a plan. And of course, wealth building, like anything else, if you're going to go somewhere, you need to have a plan, understand where you are, what you're going to do, and then the purpose behind what you're doing, of course. And I know, for example, if you're planning for retirement and understanding how long, what's my horizon, how long before, understanding the purpose of the different the things that you're doing to be able to put together, how
Yeah.
important is that?
Yeah, no, I think it's very important because you have to have a why. Why are you building wealth in the first place?
Hmm.
What's the reason behind it? Because that why is going to pour you towards doing it and executing your plan. So purpose is at the forefront of everything we do, not just
Right.
wealth building, but every single thing we do. It has to
Right.
be a reason why we're doing it that's compelling. That's
Right.
compelling. It's going to make you move, because if your why is not strong enough, then guess what? You're not going to hit your targets. You're not going to hit your goals because
You're
you're
gonna
just
spend
going
that
through
money
the
before,
motion.
yeah, you're going through the motion, starting all over.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. So share with everyone, if they're interested in working with you, interested in getting your book, where can they get your book, where they can reach you, how
Yeah.
can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so our book, it's in most stores. It's in Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart. You can order it
Amazon, where
on
everybody likes to shop.
Amazon. Yeah, yeah, you can order it. Yeah, you can order it at Amazon or any of those other three stores I just mentioned. Um, working with us, we don't take on everyone, but it would be it'd be a pleasure to speak with you. Maybe I can help whoever is in need and direct you to where you need to go. Our website is edwardrwilliams.com. And we give loads of material, on free material, lots of it, on how to just build your wealth. So if you're starting from the bottom, and you just have nowhere to go, and just don't know what to do, then certainly, yeah, reach out and we would love to assist. I mean, we even mail you supplies. And follow us on the socials. Follow us on social. Our Instagram is Wealth with Edward. Wealth with
Wealth with Edward.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'll definitely link those in the show notes. And to close out, what one advice would you give to your 28-year-old self?
I would give tons. I think if it were me, I didn't get started building wealth until I was later. So
Mhm.
my 28-year-old self, I would say, Edward, um, start now. Actually, way before 28. I would say start now. Don't kick the can down the road. And because you have these illusions that is things are a lot more difficult than what they really are. If you're starting to build wealth, you can start with $1.
Right,
Literally, I've had clients that you can start with $1 and end up accomplishing your goals because you got a proper plan that's being
right,
revisited. Your plan's being revisited.
right.
You're measuring along the way. And so the advice that I would give to myself, if knowing what I know now, is start where you are.
Start where you are, and ain't a better way to end. Start where you are, even if it's just $1. There's a way to work your way.
Even if it's
It
just
may,
$1.
at the end of the day, it's some kind of accomplishment, and you would have more today than you would have tomorrow, yesterday, right?
Indeed. Indeed.
Okay. Edward, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming on and sharing with us. Thank you for agreeing to, share yourself, your story, a little bit about your story. And hopefully, sometime in the near future, we'll be able to come on and dive a little bit more into some kind of, some other strategies and stuff that you can probably give up. Maybe, not necessarily waiting for the other book, but be thanks again, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. You take care and keep doing what you do because you're great.